Hey guys, I'm Omar, and I want to talk a little bit about the real problem that are facing artists today online in terms of getting their work out there, in terms of getting promoted, marketing, finding customers. And I'm not just talking about authors, I'm talking about filmmakers, producers, musicians, visual artists, painters. You know, how do we really, get access to customers? How do we get our work out there? In this day and age of the internet, where so much information is so freely and readily available, as artists, we thought that this would be the time that, it would be easy for us to get out there now that independent artists can kind of get their work out there. But it's kind of been a double-edged sword because now there's so much crap out there. There's just so much noise. And where do people look for good work? How do people find basically, a good book to read? That's really the issue. So let's sort of move on here, and that is the artist to the audience. So the issue doesn't seem to be that getting your work out there is really all you need. It's not just that. It's not just getting your work out there. Um, everyone now is getting their work out there, but they're having problems getting heard, being seen, getting discovered. So the real issue here is, how does the artist connect with his audience? How does the artist find an audience? How does the artist build an audience? How does the artist maintain communication with an audience? So you could have your work out there, but it may not be seen. There are times where people put out blogs, and as you know, when you write a blog, it may never ever get seen at all, unless you have a sort of following or people, a social community that you can communicate with. So really, our problem is, as artists, is how to find an audience, and that really needs to be solved. In the past, you've had gatekeepers, right? We all talk about that all the time. A lot of the buzzword is democratization of the web, and how now everyone can get their work out there. And yeah, in a way, it's true that definitely people can get their work out there very easily. Things are much more simple. If you want to do an online video, it could be out there. If you want to write a book, you can put it out there tomorrow. But people thought that that was going to solve the gatekeeper problem. What is the gatekeeper problem? As you all know, the Hollywood thing, or the publishing game, where you had to sort of beg and plead to get your work seen by some publishing house and have them really say that you were good enough to have your work out there. And if they didn't say your work was good enough, you couldn't be seen. So now you can get seen without these gatekeepers. But it's not as easy as people think it is just because we have free access to media online. It's actually made things quite harder. Or might I say, you need to use different strategies. And that's what really we're working on. I was talking to my little brother, and I was asking him, where do you get your music from? I noticed he would fill up his iPod with so much, you have this really wide variety of music. And he says, oh, I downloaded it from LimeWire, he used to tell me. So I say, and it just didn't make sense to me, because I know that LimeWire is just a search, it just connects files. It's just a whole bunch of files from computer to computer. So I said, where do you really find out what to download? You have people say, I download from LimeWire. That's not really where you heard about the music. So he said, oh, well, I go to the top iTunes, 100, top 100 iTunes, list, and then I go get it from LimeWire. Ah, I see. So you actually first go to iTunes. So we're back to the gatekeeper thing. We thought that iTunes was, there to sort of, democratize, the web, yet iTunes still has the sort of a lot of the same pop music that comes on the radio on their top 100 list. So here he is still looking at iTunes. Then he goes to LimeWire to get the files that he wants. So that's sort of what kind of that's sort of the island that we're in right now, which is basically it's all LimeWire. It's all a distribution platform, but that doesn't mean anything because really if no one can find your work, they'll never find the files or the things that they want. The way they find it are from friends and from reputable, news sources. So definitely the issue has become discovery. How as artists can we become discovered? How can we build and find an audience? Right? So we can't just really throw water out there in the ocean and expect that people are going to find and drink that water because it's just a huge ocean, right? So it's just a distribution platform we need to really conquer. With this gatekeeper model, it's really that the artist and the fan loses because real art is not necessarily found through the gatekeeper model. I mean, say my little brother, he wants to look for good music and he's stuck basically going with whatever iTunes, the top 100 says is the top music. So really, the gatekeeper model, both the artist and the fan loses. But in the new world and in this new form of the next, really the evolving media side of this internet, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful industry, is that now we need to find a solution so that the fan and the artist become one and find each other without the need for that gatekeeper. So there are other methods that an audience can use to actually connect with the artist. And that's what the artist really needs to work on and solve, not just throwing their work out there on iTunes. I know how many of you know a whole bunch of musicians that, yeah, I got my stuff on iTunes. Well, who cares? I mean, nobody really cares that it's just on iTunes, right? And that's what a lot of people will sell you on. Yeah, get on iTunes. Yeah, and how are we going to sell our music? You need to do much more than just getting on iTunes. So the question is, what do we do? What do you do now to actually not just get your work distributed, but actually seen and found by a lucrative, desiring audience? Well, definitely you can't escape the fact that you do need to get your work out there on the Kindle and the iPad, and that's what we're working on. So yes, musicians need to get their work out on iTunes, need to get their stuff out on Amazon MP3, need to distribute their artwork in places where they can be found. Definitely, because that's just the first step. I mean, if it's not there, it can never be found or purchased, right? But so much more needs to be done. But definitely, number one thing we can do now is really the author needs to have ebooks available on Kindle, on the iPad, readily downloadable for a thirsty, hungry, reader. The next step is really building an audience. You can't just put your work out there. You have to really be part of a community. Involve your audience, involve your readers with you. Get them connected with you. People now want to hear about you, want to talk to you. How often did you read a book and wish you could ask the author a question? I know when I wrote one of my first books, I used to get loads of emails, and that's how people would contact me. They would sort of hunt me down and look for me and find ways to connect with me and email me all these questions. I mean, that's really the new model, right? Where people now need to connect with you, and that's the new way where you can build an audience. So now that your work is out there, you need to be connecting with potential fans and your readers and an audience, and keep building and maintaining that connection for a long time, because you as an artist, you're never going to stop creating artwork, and people will never stop craving art. So you need to maintain that connection, and not only building it, constantly connecting with the audience. You need to become your own gatekeeper, and that's really the new model, where the artist is his or her own management gatekeeper, little island where people are there gathered around the artist and rally around the artwork and really wait for what's going to come next, desire what's there. So there's the gatekeeper model is not bad, and it's probably going to be around for a long time, but the new model for the independent artist is to become your own gatekeeper, where you use the strategies a gatekeeper uses, but it's for yourself and for your own audience. So you decide, what's released, when it's released, and what people want and what people crave, and you deliver it to them directly. And this is really what we're working on, a way to distribute your work, but also build an audience and maintain a connection and build a community surrounding your work. And we really look forward to working with you. Please go ahead and request an invite to hear about what we're doing next, and it's going to be fabulous. Thank you all. Talk to you soon.